Hi there and welcome back to another Fantasy EFL video in the Game Week preview series where I take you through everything you need to know for the coming game week, including all teams and players to target. Let me know how you got on in Game Week 2 in the comments, and if you're interested to see my final Game Week 3 team selection, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss it later this week. So after last week's video and some of the feedback you guys gave me, I'm going to have much more of an emphasis on certain players to target rather than teams. I'm still going to go through the teams, but I'll make the section a lot shorter so we can focus on the players a bit more. Before we get into that, let's have a quick look back at some of Game Week 2's highlights and some of the latest injury and transfer news. Bromley carried on their brilliant start in the Football League with a 2-0 win against Wimbledon, making them only one of 3 teams yet to concede a goal in League 2. Chesterfield destroyed Crewe 5-0 away from home, making them a high priority target for me, while Gillingham and Walsall also both won away from home, making it 2 wins out of 2. Notts County scored a 95th minute penalty to snatch a point at home to Fleetwood. In League 1, Charlton scored late again to keep up their perfect start to the season, with Huddersfield and Crawley also winning again. Stockport were very impressive in a 3-0 away win over Blackpool, putting them top of the league on goal difference, and leaving Blackpool in 23rd with 0 points on the board. Peterborough, Barnsley and Birmingham also all managed to get their first win of the season. Up in the Championship, game of the weekend was Bristol City versus Millwall, with City eventually winning the game 4-3. They were 2-0 up. Millwall scored 3 goals in 13 minutes to make it 3-2, before Bristol then went on to win the game in the 88th minute. Burnley continued their domination, beating Cardiff 5-0 at home, but they only managed 0.81 expected goals. Watford kept up their perfect start with a 3-0 win over Stoke, along with Sunderland, who smashed Sheffield Wednesday 4-0 on Sunday. Preston are already looking for their 3rd manager of the season after a 3-0 loss to Swansea. Now we'll have a quick look at some of the transfer and injury news. The biggest transfer news of the week came with Ipswich making a deal with Blackburn for last season's Championship top scorer Sammy Szmodics, who was selected by 49% of Fantasy EFL managers when the transfer went through. Obviously, if any of you guys still have him in your teams, make sure you take him out as soon as possible. Tommy Conway has also moved from Bristol City to Middlesbrough, while Sheffield United have signed Rak-Saki from Crystal Palace, who I would have expected to make some impact in the Premier League this season, so he could be a very interesting player to keep an eye on now he's in the Championship. Hull have been very busy signing Wigan defender Charlie Hughes and Chelsea striker Mason Burstow, as well as midfielder Oscar Zambrano on loan. Luton's keeper Kaminski is obviously suspended for a game after his first half second yellow to be sent off away at Portsmouth, as is QPR's Jack Colback as well. Huddersfield striker Reece Healey missed out on Saturday's game due to injury, but Michael Duff's comments were, "He just felt his groin in training, and obviously with his injury history, we have to be careful with him. He's had a full pre-season, we'd rather him miss 1 game rather than 6. I don't think there's too much in it." So that doesn't seem too bad. We'll have to keep an eye on Huddersfield's lineup for this Saturday if you're thinking about putting him in your teams. Reading's Harvey Nibbs also missed out on their 2-0 win against Wigan, with boss Ruben Sells saying, "Harvey had a groin injury in training. We scanned it and he will be between 3 and 4 weeks out." Burnley were missing both Zaruri and James Trafford for their 5-0 win over Cardiff. Parker spoke after the game confirming both were ill, that's the main reason they weren't involved. Which is a weird way of saying it in my opinion. He says it as if there are also other reasons too. So maybe 2 players to avoid for now, and then we'll see if they come back into the lineup or not. Maybe I'm just misunderstanding that though. Maybe they genuinely were just ill and will come straight back into the team. Okay, now let's have a look at some teams I think we should be targeting this week, and I'll rank them in order of personal preference. But you can also see which one the stats and data think are the best option too. First up we've got Huddersfield, who play against Shrewsbury. Town continued their perfect start to League 1 with another solid performance against Stevenage, whereas Shrewsbury got battered 4-1 by Peterborough. Huddersfield have a projected goals of 1.62, a clean sheet percentage of 45.5 and a win percentage of 63.6, so the data strongly supports another Huddersfield win this week. Next up is Doncaster at home to Morecambe. Morecambe are yet to score a goal in all competitions this season so far, and although Doncaster did lose last weekend 3-1 to Newport, I do expect them to perform better now back at home against this struggling Morecambe side. Doncaster have a projected goals of 1.7, which is the highest in this list, with a clean sheet percentage of 44.4 and a win percentage of 66.7. I've put the Bradford game next against Bromley, and I know I've already talked about how good Bromley's start to the season has been, but realistically, it won't carry on like that forever, and if it does, then fair play, but I think this away game at Bradford may be too much for them. Bradford have made a fairly good start to the season with a 2-1 win over MK Dons and a 0-0 draw with Salford this weekend. They've got a projected goals of 1.54, a clean sheet percentage of 41.7 and a win percentage of 60.6, so they are the big favourites for this one. We've also got Barnsley, who also have a projected goals of 1.54, with a clean sheet percentage of 40 and a win percentage of 60. Both Barnsley and Northampton got their first win of the season last weekend, both with 2-1 victories. But with Barnsley being at home for this one, they are big favourites and I expect them to win this comfortably. Then we've got Chesterfield with a projected goals of 1.5 after their 5 goals scored in Game Week 2. They have a clean sheet percentage of 37.7, so not quite as high as the others, but a win percentage of 57.1, so again, big favourites against the Salford side who are yet to get a win this season. They did manage a 0-0 away draw at Bradford, but I think in-form and confident Chesterfield will be too much for them, with how freely they can score goals when they get going. There are a fair few more games on here which I'll put in my preferred order, but I won't go through every single one as I'm trying to keep this section a bit shorter and focus on players to target like you guys wanted. So feel free to pause the video here, have a look through the stats on screen. But yeah, all these teams do look good to me, I've just put them in an order for the video. Right, moving on, we'll start having a look at some players to target for Game Week 3. First up is Edo Kayembe of Watford. He's scored 26 total points so far, with 3 goals in 2 weeks. One of them was the goal straight from a corner last week that we talked about, and he's the highest scoring midfielder in the game so far. Watford have scored 11 goals in the 3 games in all competitions so far this season, and play at home to Derby in Game Week 3. Obviously Derby have just got their first win back in the Championship against Middlesbrough, but I feel they may have been lucky to come away with 3 points, or a clean sheet at the very least, with Middlesbrough creating 1.55 XG and having 20 shots. I do think Derby will be a lot stronger at home this season, and so away at Watford, who are clearly playing very well, might be quite difficult for them. Let's not forget Derby conceded 4 goals to Blackburn in Game Week 1. Definitely someone to think about for Game Week 3, although I do think there's a lot of midfielder choices to debate about this week. I've got to mention Anthony O'Connor again. He's been in each of my videos so far this season, but I can't stress how good he is for those extra points from the scoring system. I know he's playing in a Harrogate side that are struggling at the minute, but that's actually helping him out. He's averaging 14 clearances per game at the moment, so 28 from the first 2 game weeks. The next highest is only 17, who is Toby Sims, who also plays for Harrogate. I feel like this isn't just a bit of luck, this is just Harrogate conceding a lot of chances, and these centre-backs are needing to make so many clearances during the game that they're raking in these bonus points. Anthony O'Connor is also at the top of the leaderboard for blocks so far this season with 5, or 2.5 per game if you want to look at it that way. They play Colchester away next, who have just beaten MK Dons 2-0 at home, and drew 2-2 with Reading in the Cup earlier last week. They took 12 shots and 8 on target against MK Dons, so clearly they're creating a lot of opportunities, which also then means plenty of opportunities for more clearances from the Harrogate defence. The only thing obviously is that there's less chance of a clean sheet when going for a player from a team like Harrogate, but the question is, do you take that risk? And in my opinion, the answer is yes. Next up is Jodi Jones of Notts County. He was the player that scored the 95th minute penalty equaliser against Fleetwood, and so now we know that he's on penalties for County. He created an XG of 0.85 and had 4 shots against Fleetwood. Last season, Jones scored 6 goals and got 24 assists. So if he can continue at that rate, this season he could be a great valuable pick, if chosen on the right weeks. Notts County play at home against Grimsby on Thursday night. Grimsby are such an inconsistent team. They're never really in good or bad form, so it's hard to know how they're going to perform here, but either way I expect Jodi Jones to get chances. The only thing is that although Notts County tend to score a lot of goals, they also concede a fair few, so clean sheet potential with Jones isn't as high as the others, but you just have to hope he could counter that with his attacking returns. Notts County have a projected goals of 1.5, with a clean sheet percentage of 33.3 and a win percentage of 53.3. Another player I think we should be targeting is Doncaster's Luke Molyneux, who I had in my Game Week 1 team for his brace. He's up at 10.6% ownership now, so he's not so much of a differential anymore and more of a safe pick, but he's still good value in my opinion. In the first 2 games he scored 2 and assisted 1, he's got 1 interception and 4 key passes and 4 shots on target. So as well as playing in a strong League 2 team that scores a lot of goals, he's also picking up a few of those extra points you can get from the scoring system, leaving him on 25 points so far, just 1 point behind Edo Kayembe. We've already spoken about Doncaster's fixture earlier in the video, and they arguably have one of the easiest fixtures of the game week against the struggling Morecambe side. So I do expect Doncaster to score goals here. They're projected to score 1.7, and I expect Molyneux to be involved in those. Another player I want to talk about is Luton's Alfie Doughty. Obviously Luton haven't had the return to the Championship that they wanted or expected, with a battering by Burnley and a 0-0 draw with Portsmouth, but Doughty's definitely been a bright spark in that team. He's only at 2.9% selected and has accumulated 19 points so far over the first 2 game weeks. He got an assist in Game Week 1, he's made 5 interceptions and made 4 key passes. Luton do play away this week, but it is against Preston, and like I already said, they're already looking for their 3rd manager of the season after sacking Lowe after 1 game of the season. Preston lost 3-0 to Swansea last weekend and sit 23rd in the table, with only Cardiff below them. At the time of recording, they haven't found a new manager, so I can't really comment on that, but if they do, I'll have to hope that they don't have a new manager bounce, but I really think Luton are the kind of team to capitalise on the situation, and how attacking Doughty's looked in the first 2 games, I expect him to be involved. Luton have a projected goals of 1.24 and a win percentage of 44.4. Just a defender to mention before we move on, I am looking at Marc Roberts of Barnsley. He actually scored in Barnsley's 2-1 win over Lincoln last weekend, but that's not the only reason I'm looking at him. He's also made 16 clearances as well as that, so combining that with Barnsley's clean sheet potential, he's looking like a really decent pick for Game Week 3. Barnsley play against Northampton and have a projected goals of 1.54, a clean sheet percentage of 40 and a win percentage of 60. So a very good chance at a clean sheet, massive favourites for the game, and he's already showed us that he has both good defensive numbers and attacking threat. With this being a home fixture as well, it just makes me like it even more. He's only selected by 0.2% of players, so this is the type of pick that is really going to see the difference between you going up in rank or like slowly falling down. Now just a couple of final questions before I end the video, and the first one is Alfie May essential? Now I don't think anyone is essential on this game so far, but do I think you could put him in your team and just leave him there every week? Absolutely. Is he Birmingham's target man? Is he their bagsman? Yes he is. So we already know he can score goals. We know he was the league's top scorer last season. But at the same time, will he score every game week? No, but is it worth the risk just putting him in because realistically he's going to score in more weeks than he doesn't? Yeah, I think it probably is. So if you're more of a casual player that doesn't want to have to look at the stats and data each week to decide your team, he's definitely a player you can have long term, but I don't think I'll have him in my team each week. I do think on certain weeks you can definitely target other players and fixtures to outscore him, but I am absolutely thinking about putting him in my team this week. You can't really not think about it at the very least. So far he's scored 1.03 goals per 90, but an XG of 0.57 per 90. Which, don't get me wrong, is very impressive still, but he is outperforming his data right now, which suggests it won't keep going forever, but to have him as a target man in one of the strongest ever League One sides, that can't be forgotten. So, do I think he's essential? No, but do I think he's fine as a long-term option to leave in our teams? Yes. The last question is, which Chesterfield attacker is the best? We obviously saw Chesterfield put 5 past Crewe last weekend, and it's not the first time we've seen them score big, but they tend to share out their goal scoring, so how do we decide who is the best option? Armando Dobra and James Berry both have 2 goals each, while Will Grigg has a goal and an assist. As a team, they've scored 6 goals at the minute from an XG of 2.2, so they are outperforming their data so far. Will Grigg has an expected goals per 90 of 0.34, taking 3.58 shots per 90, with 2.38 of them being on target. Bury has an expected goals per 90 of 0.26, taking 5.36 shots per 90, with 3.21 on target. And Dobra has an expected goals per 90 of 0.21, with 1.79 shots per 90 and 1.19 on target. So basically, even though the goals have been spread out, Grigg has the best data. It's not miles ahead, but it is ahead. And even though he's the one with just the one goal, and he takes less shots than the likes of Bury, it suggests his chances are more clear-cut and he's more clinical. So I'd have to say that Will Grigg is my favourite pick from the Chesterfield attack, but let me know in the comments if you disagree, or if you're a Chesterfield fan, please tell me what it looks like from actually watching the games. Do you have a different opinion to what I do? So there we are, that's everything you need to know before you make your Game Week 3 team selection. I'll go through my full team selection in a later video this week, where I'll also do a section on captaincy. So please subscribe to the channel so you can keep an eye out for that video. If you did enjoy this one, make sure to like the video. They do take a while to make, but they'll be coming throughout the entire season, so don't miss out. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.